Pop, 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 pop. Hello, hello, hello. All right, the audio should be a lot better now because I just plugged it in. All right. All right, let me see if this is working. There we go. Thank you guys for holding with me. Thank you. My wife Christine's in the chat. Thanks for joining. Sorry about that. I'm putting my now I have this thing in the way. Give me a sec, guys. I'm trying a new thing today. Purely because when I have the audio above me, people say they can't hear me. And so somebody suggests I put it here, and I tried it last stream, and people really liked it. So I'm going to keep it like this. All right. Now I'm going into the chat. Thank you guys for holding with me for just a sec. All right. So if you haven't been on one of my live streams, this is my weekly live stream. Thank you guys for joining. I really appreciate it. If you have questions, this is the place to ask them. This is my weekly live stream. I do this every Thursday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time because that's the time I'm in. And I just answer your questions. And then at the very end, I'm going to do some giveaways for my full courses on analystbuilder.com. It's a free giveaway. There's no promotion, no nothing. It's just a giveaway. So I know there's a lot of people joining. I appreciate it. I'm going to start answering some questions just so we have enough time to answer them all, because usually I get to most of them. But if you start spamming, I guarantee you either one of my moderators or me will ban you. There's about a 30-second delay, so just ask your question, wait a little bit, and if I don't answer it, try again later. All right, let's see. This is from Music Max. I recognize Music Max. He said, Alex just got a job as a data analyst thanks to the Udemy course list under $50. And I started a master's in business analytics as well. Congratulations. That is amazing. Awesome work. I'm super happy for you. Let me know just more information. Like what kind of industry is it in? Where do you live? It'd be really interesting to know. I think people would be interested in that. Siva asks, give me one sec. I just want to put my water right here. There we go. Hi, Alex. Will AI replace data analyst role? I've answered this 100 times on these live streams, and I have a full video on them. So I'll answer it extremely briefly. But in general, no, I don't believe that AI is going to be replacing data analysts anytime soon. There's a lot of nuance, a lot of, issues with AI. Now, if AI progresses incredibly rapidly in the next 5 to 10 years, I'm sure there will be pieces of data analysis that do get automated. My take on it is the piece that's most likely to get automated is kind of the dashboard and reporting side. Although that's been automated in some way or shape or form for many years, even before AI. And so, building things and writing code isn't usually the most difficult part of what a data analyst does. It's understanding why and what and how to do it and getting good data, which AI typically isn't amazing for, especially right now. All right, let's go on to the next question. Okay. Yeah, putting you in a timeout. If you spam, listen, if you spam, I'm going to block you. I just am. Alex, this is from Itaro Abasi. Said, and I'll get to Diego in a little bit, but Itaro Abasi said, Alex, I'm struggling with SQL and I need to have projects. What do I do? Well, you came to the right place because on my YouTube channel, I have tons of guided projects. That is the best way to start. But I do recommend kind of branching out, making your own projects, finding your own data. If you want to go into finance, I don't have a lot of finance projects. I have a few on like crypto and stock analysis, but dig into something you really enjoy and find data on that and build a project off of it. But do the guided projects first because they give you a good sense of how to build a project, where to put them, how to build a portfolio website, things like that. Diego Ariel said, how was the break? If you don't know, I went on a break. Thank you for asking, Diego. I went on a quick trip out to Dallas to see the in-laws with my family. It was great. Did a lot of swimming. ate a lot of food, a lot of unhealthy things. And so now I'm back at it. I did a small workout this morning before I got to work. And so, yeah, it was good. All right, let's see. Data analyst, this is from Eli DiCaprio. Data analyst and AI, is there a way to pair both? Yeah, of course. I still do some data analysis work, and honestly, I use AI often. Although there are, one sec, sorry, I'm getting messages. There are times where I just turn it off because it isn't that helpful. But the things that I found it pretty helpful with is kind of starter code. When I try to edit code and do anything super complex, it really isn't that great for it. It doesn't help me a lot. But it's good for like getting my code started. It's good for brainstorming. I find it good for thinking up of ideas, but it spits out so many ideas that aren't good. And then I have to like dive into that idea, and then it spits out stuff that isn't good, and then dive into another idea. So it's good for like brainstorming things, but there are a lot of things that just doesn't do well. And so I use it only for certain tasks, and those are kind of the ones that I use it for the most. Let's keep going. All right, Zio, I'm sorry. I'm going to put you in a timeout. Too much spamming. Cybersecurity, haven't turned up in a couple of weeks. How have you been? I've been good. Been very busy. Very busy with traveling and the kids going back to school. Been very busy. Calico Cooper fan, this is a sad one. I'm going to see if I can help, but it says, Alex, recommendation do you have for overcoming a job loss if you have been in IT a long time and are a manager? I'm sorry to hear that. That is not fun, especially in this economy. It really sucks. If you've been in this industry a long time, I would heavily lean on previous employers or previous connections that you made at companies. I know if I just lost my job, I would be messaging all my previous managers, all the previous people that I worked with, and just say, hey, I just got let go. Is there any openings at your company? I would, really appreciate it. People want to help people. People like helping people if they can help you and if they like you, right? If I had a friend who reached out to me right now and said that exact thing, I'd be like, let me see what I can do. So just try to lean on those connections. It's understandable in this economy to lose a job. And so that would be my biggest recommendation. But the other thing is update that resume, start applying, start reaching out to recruiters. Don't stay stagnant for too long. That's what I would say. DJ said, what would you say a degree is needed to tap into this industry? If you don't have a degree at all, so like you're right out of high school, you're going into college, you're like, I want to get a degree, I want to study. I think computer science is always going to be a great one. Finance, economics, if you want to go into a specialized industry, you can even do health informatics. You can do, healthcare is always going to be around, so you can, get into a specific niche. But something around data, numbers, could even be mathematics. I've seen a lot of mathematics people in the data world. That's kind of what I would say. Cybersecurity says, when do you know when you're truly ready to start applying to data analyst roles? This is a great question. I get this one a lot, just from people messaging me individually. Like on LinkedIn, a lot of people will message me saying, hey, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. Am I ready? And typically the answer is yes. Usually when you start getting to that question of, am I ready? You're usually ready. It's hard to give a very specific answer, but I'll try to be as specific as I can. I think that most people wait too long. They wait until they know, Python, Pandas, SQL, Excel, Power BI, and they have all these things. And by then, you're past what an entry-level role for a lot of companies actually need. For most entry-level roles at companies, typically they're just looking for like Excel, SQL, Tableau. Most companies aren't like crazy advanced. They're not big tech companies. They're not Fortune, 10 companies that need a bunch of different skills. They're looking for someone who's really good in one area. And so I would learn SQL really well. I'd learn Excel really well. I'd learn a BI tool, whichever one you like. And then I would start applying. Now, keep progressing in your skills. The more skills you have, the more jobs become available to you. But that's what I'd recommend. me see if this works real quick. No, it doesn't work. I was just curious. Okay, let me see. Ayush Gautam said, "Good morning, Alex. I see all the data roles are now being mixed up in industries. This has always been the case." Give me one sec. Sorry, when I talk, I just burp a lot. But it said that it's mixed up in industries, and that's always been the case, honestly, because even when I was first starting out, after my first or second role, when I was applying to like data analyst roles, it was like data science roles, or I'd be applying to like, these random roles, and it was actually like data engineering, and I'm like, it's not what a data analyst does, or a BI analyst does, or business analyst does, or whatever these roles were. And so that's always been the case. Every company has a different definition. That's why it's so important to kind of broaden your scope of what you're applying for. Don't just look at data analyst roles. I will never recommend you do that. In fact, that's typically what most people do. And so those are usually the ones that get applied to the most. But if you drill down, there are data visualization specialists. There are data collection specialists. There are BI engineers, they're BI developers, BI analysts. These are all different roles, and every company has a different kind of definition. And so, I would recommend looking and kind of broadening your scope. It's just every company is different. Laurette, hi Alex, just started the SQL Basic Bootcamp. I'm having hard downloading the data file from GitHub as you instructed. What should be done? If you're having trouble with the data from the bootcamp, email me at alextheanalystyt@gmail.com. If there is an issue, I want to fix it for everybody because other people might be having the same issue. So just email me at alextheanalystyt@gmail.com and I'll take a look. All right. Should we do your Excel class before SQL? So if you look at my data analyst bootcamp, that's the free one on YouTube. It's like 25 hours. I'm about to update. It's going to have like 30 hours of content because I'm going to add in R, and then I'm also going to add in the current series that we're in right now, which is Git and GitHub, because I think Git and GitHub are really useful and like you should learn that. And so I'm going to add that into the bootcamp. If you've done that, that's amazing, first off. But if you've done that, you'll know I start with SQL and then I go into Excel. You can do the reverse. In my opinion, you learn more about data types and the structure of data in SQL. And that's because you're writing the actual scripts. You're working with the data types. In Excel, the data types are more passive. The data types just sit in the columns and you don't have to think about them too much, where you have to think about them in SQL. And so I recommend that just from like a learning perspective. And if you go to Analyst Builder, we have a data analyst roadmap, and I do SQL and Excel in that same order. So I don't know, whichever one you're looking at, I would learn SQL first. That's my opinion. Sarav, hi Alex, any ideas for advanced SQL plus BI projects for resume? I did one for credit fraud analysis. Sarav, did you ask this? I feel maybe I'm having deja vu. That sounds like an exact question someone asked, and maybe it was you from last live stream. Maybe I'm just having deja vu. If you want to get more advanced, so like I have a little bit of an advanced playlist on YouTube, but it's not crazy advanced. I just, that's named advanced. If you go onto my advanced course on Analyst Builder, when it's getting into automation and indexing and all these different things, that's what I think of as more like advanced. I would create, if I were you trying to make an advanced project, I would create some type of automation with stored procedures, doing some data cleaning in SQL, storing it into like a view, and then picking up that data in the BI tool, and then automating that to pick up that data as well, and creating some visualization off it. The data itself usually doesn't matter as much. You're more focused on the automation piece. And so, you could use Python to scrape data off the web, put it into a CSV, automatically get picked up by SSIS or some other tool. SSIS is just the first one that I thought of with SQL. That's what I would do. Michael Micah, I saw your video on LinkedIn when you were singing. Your voice is so nice. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I like singing. I go I fly out to Dallas. My father-in-law lives there, and he's a musician. He plays a bunch of gigs, and so I go and I just join him, and we just have a blast. I usually play the acoustic. He plays the electric, and we go and play some gigs. It's always a fun time, and I like doing it a lot. Okay, Sandro. For a data analyst, how important and demanded is it to know different cloud services like Azure Data Factory, Databricks, Google Cloud, and so on? Are they as much demand as SQL and BI? All right, so think of it like a spectrum of a company. So most companies are like here, maybe halfway. They use SQL, Excel, their data is siloed. It's stuff you pull together, you put into a SQL database or an Excel file, you merge them, you use VLOOKUPs and all this different stuff. Most companies are here. Then you keep going, and then companies will introduce other things, right? They'll introduce maybe, like you said, maybe Azure. Maybe they're that advanced. Then you keep going, and then they're in like Snowflake, and well, I don't know. It depends on the spectrum, but Snowflake and Databricks and all these other tools. If you're looking at the majority of companies, they're over here, and that's going to be SQL, Excel, Tableau, Power BI. Not crazy advanced, right? But they have niche data that needs to be understood, and you have to dig into it. And it's still difficult work. It's not easy work. I'm just saying the tools that they use are not crazy advanced. Then you get to larger companies, and they start utilizing larger cloud platforms. They have a lot bigger need and demand for this. That's why I always say start with the basics: SQL, Excel, Tableau, Power BI, Python, those kind of things. Then you get into larger tech companies, Fortune 500 companies, startups. A lot of time use cloud because they give a lot of credits. That's when those become really useful. My experience in Azure was hands-on. I didn't know Azure getting into a company, but then we switched over to Azure and I learned it. And then Azure became like one of my main tools that I used. And so I don't think there 100% is a demand for it, but I don't think that's what you should start with. Learn the basics first, but then there is a big demand for people who know it well, right? So if you go through my free stuff on YouTube, free, do it. You can get credits. You can get learn Azure and AWS and put that on your resume. Very good skills to have, because sometimes those smaller companies are like, hey, we want someone who knows Azure and AWS because we want to transition from our local repositories or whatever it is into the cloud. So someone with that experience. And so I always recommend people learning the cloud. I think it's becoming more and more necessary to learn. But again, if you look at it on the spectrum, you can still land jobs without it. For sure. Abhinav Shendilia. I completed your data analyst bootcamp, but stuck on not getting any interviews. What should I do? Give me one sec. If you aren't getting any interviews, typically that is a resume problem. Typically, not always, but typically is a resume problem. So just look at your resume, do the best you can with optimizing it. And honestly, right now, that's not crazy because the market is horrible for hiring. So it may not even be you, but I would just double check your resume, get feedback from other people, put it on LinkedIn, and just ask people to critique it. The Black Swan Earth, cool name. What is the role of data analyst in the ETL process? It can be almost the entire process in some companies. I know companies where I've done very little of it, some companies where I've done a lot of it. So ETL stands for extract, transform, load. Now, ETL is typically, not always, but typically more in a developer or some type of engineer role, right? But data analysts do play a role in this. For example, I was on my whole data science department. Underneath that, our data science department, I was in data collection. That's like my specialty, is the ETL process. So we would extract data from all these EHR systems, not just EHR systems, but also cloud platforms, CSV files. We would extract all that data, we'd bring it in. So I typically didn't make the connectors. I'm not the connection guy. That was we had a developer. That's what we called a developer, but he was basically a data engineer. So he would make the connectors. Once that data got connected and the raw data is sitting in the thing, that's where I step in and I do a lot of work. I'm looking at the data, analyzing the data, finding issues with the data, talking with the hospital, talking with the team who we're working with, and then we're seeing how we need to mold and transform that data. We also have an end goal in mind. So, the data analyst needs to think ahead. What does this data need to look like in order for us to use it for whatever purpose we're going to use it for? Maybe it's a report, maybe it's a dashboard, maybe it's for some shareholder monthly, whatever it is. So you need to have the end goal in mind, because sometimes you need to pivot the data, change the data, aggregate the data. It doesn't, just depends on what it is. So we're working with that. And then I give all these rules and all these things, and I figure out how to do it. I create all these rules, and I work with the engineer to figure this out. I say, hey, let's write this code. Let's write this code. He writes some of it. I write some of it. I'm working with him. And then we transform that data. Then the loading process into the final, because maybe we're in a staging database. Maybe we put it into a production database, or we put it into a view, or whatever it is. That's typically, again, the engineer. But I need to then go in, make sure everything got over properly, QA the data. He sets up the monitoring. And that's a lot of the work, a lot of digging into the data. And that's not, it's very simplified, but that is a lot of what in the ETL process I would do. A lot of the transform piece, but helping with, for example, the extraction, sometimes I'd be looking at the data. I'm like, hey, there's a problem here. So I would go into the source. I get access to the EHR, and I'm like, oh, this field is sitting in a weird way. Let's change the way we're extracting it to do it this way. And then he would go and make that change. So I definitely played a piece in the extraction and the load. It's just he did more of the E and the L. I did more of the T, but I did parts of all of it. Sorry, that was very long-winded, but I love ETL stuff. All right. Let me read through here. Nobody, thank you so much for your free opportunity promotion on AB. You're absolutely welcome. If you guys didn't know, I have a website called Analyst Builder. It's my platform. Me and my team built it. It is the best place to learn data analytics in the world. And you can get 2 weeks free if you click on the link below. All you have to do is follow it. You go to like the subscription, you get 2 weeks free. You can take a course, 2 courses. I've had people message me and they said, I just took 2 free full courses on your platform. I'm super happy about that. I love when people just, get access to things. So even if you don't get the free course that you get for life at the end, you can still get the 2 weeks free down below. I'm reading through questions. Some of them I've answered already, some I haven't. When to go from Excel to Power BI? Rafael Jimenez. So Excel and Power BI, how do I say this? They actually have a lot of similar functionality. The way that, because they're both Microsoft products, the way that they look at the data, the way that they store the data, the way that sometimes they even visualize, even though Power BI is very more advanced visualization tool. They're very similar. So if you're working in Excel and you're feeling pretty good about it, you're changing data and you're doing all these things, I would recommend going to Power BI. Just start connecting the two and using them in conjunction. But I typically, if I'm using Power BI, connecting it just to an Excel file, I'll do more of the data cleaning and processing in the Excel file, unless I'm automating some more advanced things where I need like DAX and things like that, and then I'll do that in Power BI. D Bucks, is it advisable to skip Python for Azure? Yes, I would. If I were starting over from scratch and you have limited time, I would skip Python Pandas and I would go straight into Azure. I think that is a more valuable skill in today's market. And then I would go back. I think Python's still great. It's great for so many things, but I do think that Azure is more important. If I were to go back, I wouldn't change. I think Python's still a valuable stepping stone to get to more of the advanced things. I think Azure is more advanced than learning Python and Pandas now, and it's just more valuable skill at the moment to learn. But I think it's more advanced, so I'm going to keep it in my boot camp farther down. But that was interesting to think about. I don't even know what that means. I'm not going to answer. I don't know. I don't know what that question asks. Race, Is web scraping valuable for data analysis? It definitely can be. I use web scraping a lot actually in my healthcare job. We used to scrape data from, there was ICD codes that we used to use. We got this master list. We paid a lot of money for it. Excuse me. Those are like diagnosis codes. When you go into a hospital and you have a broken pinky, oh no, my pinky's broken. The doctor inputs it in his computer, XL12.1. I don't know the code for it. I'm just making up letters. But that is an ICD code, and they bill for that, and they track it, and that's how they track things. So I think they're on ICD 11 now. We used to be on ICD 10, now we're on 11. I think they're making 12, who knows? It's just updated. Anyways, what I used to do is I used to get this supplementary data set that didn't come with the paid stuff off of like the Medicare website, and we used to web scrape that. And then so I created a script to automatically download that data. I think it was like at the first of every month. And it was great because I used to have to manually go in there, change all this stuff in Excel, and then I had to merge the two documents, and I automated that whole process, and it was great. And so web scraping can be valuable for sure. And I recommend just knowing the basics at least of how to like scrape static data. That's really helpful. Satyam Yadav. Hi, sir. Last month, I started learning data analytics. So give me some IMP points as a beginner learner in this field and love you. I love you too. Some improvement points. So when you're first starting out as a data analyst, you have to start with the tools. I firmly believe that. I actually don't think starting with theory and starting with like how to think like an analyst is actually that helpful because you don't even understand the data. I think getting into the tools, understanding the data, understanding data types, learn the tools first. But then what's really important is you need to build projects that are your own, not my guided projects. You need to do those first. I think they're super helpful, but then go back and build your own projects. And here's why. When you don't have someone guiding you, you're going to ask really difficult questions, and then you have to solve it. And that's what the real world is like. And then when you get into interviews, they're going to ask you about SQL and Python, and you can dive into that previous knowledge and say, I was building this project. They're going to ask a very common question. How do you know SQL? Or what do you know about SQL? And you're going to say, well, I built a lot of projects with it, and here's one project that I think was really representative of my skills. I built this and I did this. And what was really tough is, just working with data types, making sure that the date format was properly formatted, because in the end I wanted this report. And so I had to do this to it. I had to transform it. And then, so that sounds a lot better than just, I took a course, or whatnot. And so those are my recommendations, I would say, is learn, build projects, and go back and build your own projects. Samir, this is just an interesting one. My institute is teaching Tableau, MongoDB, Orange, machine learning, Amazon, SageMaker, and Azure machine learning. Will I be able to be a good data analyst? Yeah, why not? Depends on what you use the tools for. Those are all cool tools. Some of them are a lot more machine learning focused, as you've already kind of mentioned in there. But those are good tools to learn. Does not hurt to know that stuff. But for data analysis, yeah, why not? Definitely could be. Femi Komolafe. Hi, Alex. You're doing a fantastic job. I'm from Nigeria. Was able to transition into a data analyst role in the finance sector within a few months from retail just by following your videos. Hey, congratulations, Femi. That is amazing. I love to hear that. I love to hear it. Oh, and you asked another question. I'll answer that one, and then I'll go to Gaurav in a sec. But Femi asked another follow-up question. What would you recommend is the best way to advance my career? I'm feeling I'm not getting enough challenges in my current department to really develop myself. So I was in a similar role. I was in a role where I wasn't really being challenged, in my opinion. And so I went above and beyond. I'm not sure if that's just my personality or if I was like, I just really want to advance my career. I can't remember. But I started looking at things in a different way. I stopped looking at what is my job, and because I wasn't being really challenged. I started looking at what can I do to like really optimize and help the people in my job. But for me, that was a lot of Python. I started learning a lot of automation. I started learning how to build things. And that advanced my career a ton because when I started doing that, people were like, oh, that's really helpful. I got promotions because of that. Because I went beyond just the simple stuff I was being tasked with, and I started looking at it larger as like a business, like what needs to happen to help the business. So I would do that. You don't have to wait on people for you to advance your career. You sometimes got to take that step. This other question says, it's from Garage Singh, said, please tell interview practice questions. There are so many. There's so many. I have videos on YouTube on interview practice questions or interview questions, but on Analyst Builder. And this, again, this is the part of the 2 weeks for free. You don't even have to pay for this. You go check out our questions page. All those questions are for the technical questions. And then we have another part called general technical questions, which are questions like, they start really easy. What do you know about SQL? What are your greatest strengths? Simple questions, but then they get really advanced. And then the advanced ones are like, let's say you're stepping into a senior data analyst role and your previous predecessor didn't document all the things that, they were working on, and you're supposed to be taking over these projects. What would you do in order to get up to speed as quickly as possible? These are questions that you're going to get asked in interviews, especially as you get higher up in intermediate, mid-level, and senior level data analyst positions that are really tough to answer if you've never answered them before. So our platform has those questions on there, and you'll get immediate feedback on your answers. And so it's pretty awesome. That is the best. I honestly, I don't know of a better platform that for interviewing, for preparing for interviews than our platform. Let's see. How's the market in Europe? Mike, how's the market in Europe? I still can't decide if I want to become a data analyst or a web developer. Any help or hints? I find them both interesting. Okay, so I don't live in Europe. I live in the East US. The US market isn't the best just because the economy is in shambles, in my opinion. Europe, I've heard, is not any better. That's what I've heard. I am not an expert in the European market. That is just what I've been hearing and seeing online. Now, in terms of data analyst or web developer, in my opinion, because of tools like ChatGPT, Claude, and things like that, a lot of people are building their own websites. A lot of companies are building their own websites. For data analysts, people are trying to do their own data analysis. I think, in my opinion, that data analyst requires a lot more in-person communication, a lot more domain expertise, whereas web dev tends to be a lot of similar things in building. It's just my opinion. I know some web developers who have gotten a lot less work lately just because of things like that. But web developers will always be needed. I think that web developers are still, people get up and running with like a basic architecture of a website, and then they can't progress past that, and then they hire a web dev. I've just been hearing from web dev people specifically that it's been less work. And that's biased. I fully admit that. I just know a lot more about a data analysis, All right, let me get out of here. I skipped some questions. I hate when it does that. How good is Coursera for data analytics? There are some great ones. I've taken many good courses on Coursera. I actually have like 2 or 3 videos on Coursera courses that you can take. But I hate to say, this is not meant to be a plug for myself. I just think they've increased the price many times in the past several years. It used to be like $35, and now it's like $65 per month. It's very expensive. And so, but there are good courses. Go check them out. But if you want to take, in my opinion, better courses, I have mine. But that's just my humble opinion. Let's see. This is an interesting one. Let me read through it. Aham said, basically he's not getting any, he's applied to 50 jobs daily, not getting any interviews. Typically, that is a resume issue. So almost all job screeners use an ATS system. If you're not optimized for that system, it's not going to get through. Even if you have the best resume in the world to you, The AI and computer systems that scan these resumes are pretty, specific on what they want. So run your resume through an ATS system for free online somewhere and see what you need to improve. All right. Listen, it's probably a fair question, but you're spamming. I don't like spammers. But the question that he asked, and you know what? I'm not going to answer simply because he's spamming. But if anyone asks it in a different way, I will definitely answer it. Let's see. The Black Swan Earth. Hello, Alex. What is the difference between a data analyst and a data specialist? The hiring manager recommended me for a data specialist role instead of a data analyst. I don't know. I don't know the exact answer to that. I used to be a data collection specialist and analyst, which sounds similar, but that was like at a small nonprofit. And I just worked in like Excel and a tiny bit of SQL. Yeah. I don't know the difference. Yes, this is from Abugula Ayomindi. I do have an Alex the Analyst Discord. Alex the Analyst Discord. Go check it out. Moses, if Analyst Builder is not working for you, it's probably because you're in a specific country or you are on like a company computer. Just use a VPN and it should work. There's very few times where the website's not down. It almost never goes down. So just try using a VPN is my opinion. Catherine Salvage. That's a cool name. What's your take on applicants who are self-taught or use programs like yours and Udemy versus a bootcamp completion? All right, so let me give you the perspective of a hiring manager. Because I was a hiring manager. I was also, but before I was a hiring manager, I was on a hiring team for like 2 years. And I saw a ton of applicants. I screened them. I was the technical interviewer. So because on my team, I was the much more technical person. And so I came in and I asked them about SQL. I asked them about, Power BI when we used Power BI. I said, what do you know? And I would get a sense of what they knew and didn't know. And I saw a lot of people from all backgrounds. Some had formal education. They had a master's degree in business analytics. I had some that were straight out of high school but had experience. Some that took a boot camp. Some that were self-taught. I've seen it all. So here's like my general sense of, hireability versus people who got interviews. In general, for larger companies and for like larger tech companies, for data analyst roles specifically, education was a little bit more important. So, if you had a master's degree in something, if you had a bachelor's degree in something, typically our systems, our company just tended to gravitate more towards that. That's just the honest truth. But I interviewed a ton of people who didn't fit that role, who just had experience or had no experience, who had boot camps. And this was back in, 2018, 19, 20, 21, 22, and that time frame. So you're asking specifically for self-taught. We hired self-taught people. Typically, they already had experience when they got to our company. Ours was a very big company. We paid a lot of money, paid really well. So we expected, previous experience. I think maybe we've only hired one person who was just like right out the gate, but just was really smart. And so we hired him. But most people, they had experience. It did not matter. It 100% did not matter if they came from a boot camp or they were self-taught or anything like that. When they got to us and had experience, I sat through 100 interviews. Every single time, what we cared about was, do they know what they're doing? And do they fit what we're trying to do? Typically, we look for people in healthcare backgrounds. Those are the people that typically we did not care if they had formal education at all, bachelor's, master's, because we were in healthcare. So if somebody had a background in, like they were a nurse, or they were a nurse's assistant, or they were, what are they called? I'm blanking on it, but they had healthcare background. We didn't care. What we wanted was their knowledge of healthcare EHR systems, because we work so much with them. So we actually really cared about that. But then For some of these roles that we were hiring for, we needed someone who also had the technical skills. So their technical skills were not as important. We didn't care if they got them from a boot camp. We didn't care if they got them from Udemy. As long as when I asked them, hey, tell me about your knowledge of SQL, and then they would tell me, and I was like, yep, this person knows what they're doing. They could do the job. That's what we cared about. So I was long-winded on this, but I really do care about this question because I think people get themselves, they give themselves kind of a limitation. They say, oh, I'm only self-taught. I shouldn't do XYZ. I've only have worked in healthcare, so I can't do XYZ. There are companies that value what you do now. You just have to find a way to get to them. And that is the thing that I think limits a lot of people. Now that I've been I've been working in the industry a long time, I look back and I could have gotten a job a lot faster if I had found companies that valued my previous experience, but I was just applying to randomness, just to random companies. And then once I started figuring out, hey, healthcare is my superpower, that's when I started. It wasn't necessarily my technical skills every time, but the domain knowledge was much more important in some cases. Great question. Catherine Salvage, I'm just going to throw this out there from, it says, I'm learning better through Analyst Builder and may drop my pricey bootcamp. Listen, I'm not a bootcamp fan. Typically what they do is they charge you $6,000, $10,000. It's insane. And then you get like AI feedback on things and you get to see your mentor like once a week and they give you generic advice and it's not super helpful. And then they don't have a job guarantee and I hate that. That rubs my chaps. I don't even know if that's a saying, but it rubs me the wrong way. So I'm glad to hear that. Just reading through questions. If you start spamming, I'm gonna block you. I hate to do it. I don't like spamming. I don't like blocking people. Interesting. Andy Bandy. That's a cool name. If that's your real name, that's a sweet name. It's like a superhero name. Hey man, just graduated from uni. What graduate bank accounts should I be looking at getting? Is this like what bank accounts you want to work at, or what bank accounts you like should get as a consumer? Bank accounts in general are all somewhat similar. I don't recommend getting a credit card. Credit cards are not great, in my opinion, unless you're very strong-willed. You pay it off. This is just some financial advice. Listen, I've been living in this world for a while. I got some tips on keeping your finances in check. But I use some Chase. I use some Bank of America for different business purposes and personal purposes. But you can use local credit unions as well. They might give you a higher savings rate. So within, I guess if you want to call it an interest rate, you could, or APY. There's a lot of different terms that can kind of be similar. But if you store it in like a traditional bank account like Chase, you're going to get like 0.01% back on your money. And they're using your money. Your money, you put in $10,000, your $10,000 doesn't sit in there. They take your $10,000 and then they invest it. They give it as loans, etc. And so they give you 0.01% back. Put your money in a high yield savings account. Credit One is one that I use for high yield savings. They can give you 3.8% back on your money for free. You put 10,000 in there, you'll get, $35 a month for free or something like that. I don't check that math. So high yield savings accounts are great. But if you want to work at a bank, I know lots of people who work in banks. There are so many different divisions within banks. This is just what time is it? Oh, good. I thought it was like 10:30. I thought I went over by big time. Let me make sure. Okay. I was making sure I wasn't getting texts about something being wrong. Banking has so many different areas to it that data analysts work in. So if you are interested in working at a bank, take a look at, use ChatGPT. Tell me about the different departments within a bank that will use data analysis. Then go and look for jobs in those specific departments. Reach out to people, find people on LinkedIn who work in those departments and say, hey, I'm really interested in working in this department. People will be like, oh, really? Why? That's weird. No one ever knows about this department. We're kind of like the unseen. And they'll be like, that's really cool. Can you tell me more about it? I'd love to learn more. People like helping people, right? Anyways, just some random advice. Let's see. Ishmael Atif. Can I start freelancing by knowing Power BI and basic SQL? Probably not, if I'm being honest. If you go on like Fiverr or you go on like Upwork, these are like typical freelancing consulting websites. It's gonna be really hard to get your first job with that unless you basically do it for free. And they're like, yeah, sure, why not? This isn't like super important, but people want to know that they're getting. I don't know why I moved this closer. People want to know that they're getting good work when they're paying for something to be done. And so if you know just the basics, you probably don't know a lot. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just like, I probably wouldn't pay someone who just knows the basics of something. Nicholas Butler, will the projects I complete on Analyst Builder course be enough to start applying for entry-level jobs / internships? Yes. The projects on Analyst Builder are a lot more advanced than the ones on YouTube. Specifically, like my Power BI project is probably one of my, and Pandas are probably my favorite projects I've ever made for any course. The Power BI one is literally a dashboard that I used to build when I was a manager, or like my team would build them for the IT department. It's like shot for shot, exactly what we used to build. And people put that on their portfolio, and it's a really great one to use. It's complete 100% realistic. And then the Pandas one is great. So yes, yeah, the projects are definitely good. If you're not able to redeem the 2 weeks free and Ko-fi, then just shoot support@analystbuilder.com a message and they'll help you out. Fifi Fawoma Abuen. Can I have you as my mentor? So funny enough, I used to have a mentorship program. This was like in 2021-ish. And I started advertising it on LinkedIn, and I was a smaller creator back then and started taking on mentees. And I kid you not, almost not every single one, it was like 80% of my mentees ended up getting jobs. They were just, I could tell right away when I started working with someone if they were going to get a job or not, just based off of, how they talked, their perception of themselves, how hard they were working. I could tell within usually the first or second session. So I got pretty good at that. But I loved doing mentorships. I then started, when I advertised, I started getting a backlog. First it was 10 people, then 50, then it was 100. And then at one point it was like 750 people on my backlog of mentees, and I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it anymore. There's too much pressure on me. I couldn't keep up with how many people wanted to do it. I also didn't want to increase my pricing because I was charging it was like $100 a month, and I wanted to keep it really affordable. That literally led to me creating Analyst Builder, because I go really in depth into a lot of like mentorship style teaching in there. And so that's kind of what I do. And I try to keep it really cheap so that people most everybody can afford it. So I don't do mentorships anymore. I just don't have the time. I really don't. Austin Smith. What's the best way to get out of the preparation phase? I honestly feel like I spend more time preparing than actually doing projects as a data analyst. It's like I'm scared to take the next step. Yeah, it could be fear. But I think that there's a certain level of confidence, that comes with failing. Some people do not like to fail. When you build a project, you're going to fail. And so I think the mindset shouldn't be, is this a fail or is this a good or bad? Think of it as, this is me learning. Building a project is just a learning experience. My first couple projects, I kid you not, were some of the worst things. Looking back, they were horrible. And when I first started applying for data analyst roles, I didn't even have a portfolio. I didn't build any projects. You know what I did? I sent in with my resume some of my SQL code that I wrote. I didn't know what people did. I didn't have anyone telling me what to do like I do on my channel. I didn't have anybody, a mentor to guide me. And so I sent my, excuse me, I sent my SQL code on the back of my resume. And then when I went in person, I had that as well. I brought in my SQL code, and it was like aggregations and window functions. And I brought that in with me. I didn't know what to do. And so that was my first projects. It just was. And so, was that the best thing in the world? No. But I learned a lot from that. So look at it as more a learning thing than it is, a pass fail. Ayush Gantam. Hey, Alex, do you think higher model accuracy is always worth the extra computational cost? Or should we sometimes prefer a lighter model that is faster and cheaper? It sounds like you're talking about an AI model instead of a machine learning model, which the way you're saying it could mean either one. I'm guessing you're meaning AI model because you're saying a lighter model, although, again, that could still apply to a machine learning model. So if you're looking at a machine learning model, I worked with my data science team a lot on machine learning stuff. Give me one sec. Oftentimes, it's very dependent on the data and what you're actually trying to do with it that determines model accuracy in machine learning. So sometimes 87% is a fantastic model accuracy. Whereas if you get 99% in other models, you're like, no, so something's wrong. So if that's what you're referring to, very dependent. I can't, it's so many variables. I can't give advice on that. But if you're talking about AI, it also depends on what you're doing. If you need high amount of accuracy to what you're doing, sure, use the latest model. If you're using an API and paying per token, you can, there are ways to limit the token usage as well. But cheaper and faster and lighter models can sometimes do the exact same thing as later models if it's not any more complicated than it was before, if that makes sense. All right, let me, all right, guys. So we have just a 2 or 3 more minutes, and then we're going to do a giveaway. Now, the giveaway is literally just a free, I'm going to give you a code. All you have to do is be on analystbuilder.com at the checkout for your course. And I'll walk through that in a second, but you have to have an Analyst Builder account just to redeem the free course. Excuse me. Someone just asked, am I working through a Git? It flashed and then so I don't know the name, but are you working through a Git and GitHub series? Oh, here it is. Will you be completing the Git and GitHub? Oh, it says course, but series. I enjoy the first parts. Yes, the whole series for Git and GitHub that's on. I'm going through it right now. The second lesson was on Tuesday. Let me go over here real quick. I'll tell you. Let me go to my videos. The next one is basics of Git and using VS Code with Git. That's on September 9th. Then I have reverting back to previous commits in Git, branching and merging in Git, connecting Git to GitHub, working with Git and GitHub together. Those are all the next lessons in the Git and GitHub series. So those will be very soon. Pete Gutenberg, my favorite head on YouTube. Thank you. I appreciate it. I don't know what to say to that, but thank you. I appreciate it. Oh boy. Okay, Andy Bandy gave me some more context. Thank you, sir. I was talking about saving account. So if you're saving money in just a traditional bank account, you're losing money. Let's say you put $10,000 in. $10,000 now is not the same as $10,000 in 5 years. You're going to lose your buying power because the fiat currency gets devalued. It always has and always will for the past 50 years. It's going to lose buying power. So if you just keep it in there, it does nothing. You want it to grow. So you can sit that in a few places. If you want to just sit in a traditional savings account, put in a high yield savings account. They have minimums. Some of them have minimums, like you have to have $500 in there. But do that. Do it because you'll get 3% on your money as long as it goes on. I, at one point, had a 4.2% return monthly, and it was making me a good chunk of change just for sitting my money in there because they loan that money out, but I need, that's like my emergency fund. They loan that money out, but because they loan it out at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10% to businesses, personal loans, yada, yada, I get a portion of that money back, whereas in a typical bank account, you won't. You can also put it into a money market account. So in an investment account, go into Fidelity or Goldman Sachs or wherever you want to go, put it in a money market account. It'll sit there, it'll be safe, but you'll get money back from that. But look into it. You do some Googling, watch some YouTube videos, ask ChatGPT, but don't just put it into a bank account. I don't recommend it. I don't have much money in a traditional, just bank account anymore. All right, guys. I know there are more questions, and I answered a lot, but now it is time for the giveaway. My favorite time of the day. But I'm going to be doing this next week. So next Thursday at 9 a.m., I'll be here again. So you can come back and ask the questions if I didn't answer your question. Now, I'm going to create a code in just a second. I haven't created them yet. But if you want one of my free courses, it can be any course you want, go to analystbuilder.com. I'm going there right now. You can't see it on my screen, but you have to log in, whatever way you do that. Go to courses. Go to pricing, go to courses, and then click on any course you want. Let's say I want the Cloud Computing Essentials for Azure and AWS. I'm going to click buy. You don't have to buy it. I don't want anyone to buy anything. I promise you, it is not going to hurt my feelings because I don't want you to buy. All right. But there's an add promotion code right there. I'm looking at it. You can't see it, but I'm looking at it. Add promotion code. I'm going to give you a code. If you are the first one to add the promotion code, apply it, your price will go to 0, and then you buy it for 0, then you get the course for free. There you go. If it says error or you didn't get it, it means somebody else got it before you. I don't make the rules. All right, I'm going to go ahead and create the codes. Let me come over here. I'm creating the codes now. You can't see it, but I can. Let me go to 100% off any course. Here we go. These are all my courses. All right. I'm going to create a code right now. I'm looking around for something to do. Excuse me. I got something in my throat. I apologize. And I don't want to drink the water right now because I'm almost done. Let's do the code. Only one person can redeem this one. The code is data. All caps, data. That is our code for today. That's one code. I'm going to give out 5 total. Well, 5 courses total. This next one, 2 people will be able to redeem. This one is just lovely. I like this one. The next code is friendship. It's friendship. And we're running low on time, so I'm just going to do the last code as well. This one also can be redeemed by 2 people. By the way, if you get one of these, please let me know what one you got. You'll know you got it because it'll check out. And then if you go to your purchases tab, it'll show it, and you're going to have access to that forever. But our last code is lovely. Lovely. All caps. All caps. All right, somebody got the data one. Let's see if somebody got the friendship one. I can see who gets them, but I'm not going to say their names, but I can see on my end who gets it. So I hope some people get this. Okay, friendship is gone. I see you guys who redeemed it. Great work. Let's see. Lovely, is that one still here? See if someone got it. I bet someone got it already. The only requirement is being fast and knowing how to spell. Hey, 2 people got that. All right, so 5 people just got free courses. I hope that you got something good. Let me know what courses you got. Let's see. If you can't access it, try using a VPN. There's very few times it can't. Sometimes ad blockers will block certain things. But I hope you guys got it. If you get an invalid code, it means somebody else got it before you. It just happens. It happens. All right, let's see. Anybody get any? Let me know if you got it. If you didn't, that's okay. That happens. Do you analyze crypto? I do have a crypto project on my YouTube channel. Yeah, go ahead and check that out. Yeah, if it got the code, so SNSL in California, if it got the code and it said it accepted it, but then you paid and it didn't go through, you didn't get it. Somebody else got it before you. Don't buy it. I don't want anybody to buy anything. I really don't. If you got it for free, great. If not, there's always next week or something like that. But yeah, or you can do the 2 weeks free below and get 2 weeks free. If you didn't win it, Brabi, say Andrew, I got the MySQL for data analytics. That's what's up. I love that. That is awesome. All right. So if you didn't win one of the free courses, that's okay. You can still get 2 weeks free down below. And in that 2 weeks, you can take as many courses as you want. And try out the questions page. We have technical questions, general questions. We're going to be adding a projects page soon. Very excited about that because the projects are going to be like really good projects, and it'll kind of be more of a challenge than it is me guiding you through it. And so I'm really excited for the projects page. Really, really, really excited for the projects page. If you are already a member and you want to buy something, you can get 30% off with 35 off. You can see that in the description below. All right, guys. My thoughts on DataCamp. Andy Bandy, thoughts on DataCamp. I actually do like DataCamp. I do like DataCamp. The only thing, so I used DataCamp for a while. The only thing I don't like about DataCamp is they kind of spoon feed you in some areas, which means is you have to like fill in the piece of code out of this code script. And that's not the way that I learn, although some people do learn that way. I like writing out the whole piece of code. That's how I learn. And so I felt like at times DataCamp just kind of gave it to me instead of challenging me to do it or whatnot. That's just my opinion. Tony in this world, yes. If you see the full price on the thing, that means you may have accidentally paid for it. Just go into your purchases. You don't even have to ask me. You just click refund, and it'll refund your money. We have it's like a no questions asked policy on refunds. So if you ask for a refund, and it's like within the first 7 days, we don't even ask for anything. You just click refund, and it gives you the refund. So if you accidentally bought it, just refund it. That just happens. Stripe is weird. So sorry about that. All right. That is this live stream. Thank you guys so much for joining. I'll be here next week. I'll be here next week. Follow me on LinkedIn, Twitter, or X or Twitter. If you don't already subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on YouTube. I release videos all the time, as well as shorts. I'll put out a short tomorrow. But I hope that this is helpful. I really appreciate it. All right, let's get out of here.